Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening. And we have to talk about the stock market and what happened this week with the GameStop situation. And I'm going to make a separate video on that because there are so many things that took place. And there's so many things that event revealed in the way of truth about how the stock market really operates. Is unbelievable. But I came across this article again from Zero Hedge, and it's authored by Charles Hugh Smith of Two Minds blog. The stock market, fatally wounded by the truth, will stumble and crash. The stock market has just been punctured by the thin blades of truth. It is fatally wounded, but nobody dares notice. The wounds are barely visible, but the internal damage is mortal. The stock market is already stumbling and will soon crash. The banquet's participants ignore the faltering market because the rules are, we never reveal the truth or acknowledge it or discuss it, no matter how obvious, because truth is fatal to fraud. So the stock market's vital signs are in free fall, but the conversation remains upbeat and light. Stimulus, rapid growth in the second half, etc., all the patter of a carefully constructed illusion that fraud is forever as long as the truth never comes out. Alas, the truth has emerged from the shadows despite the silence of the insiders and the financial media. Here are the truths that have emerged like karmic genies. 1. The stock market is nothing but one giant fraud. The entire market is corrupt and rigged from the ground up. The fraud is systemic, designed into every tendril of the market. It was a useful deception to blame it all on the bad players, but now the truth has been revealed. The market is nothing but a rigged game enriching insiders. 2. The Fed is a fraud. All the Federal Reserve has accomplished in 13 years of goosing the stock market is unprecedented wealth and income inequality, as the fraud of the Fed has boosted the fraud of the market, which has fatally undermined America's social and economic orders. Please read this short paragraph and let it sink in. Monopoly versus democracy. 10% of Americans now control 97% of all capital income in the country. Nearly half of the new income generated since the global financial crisis of 2008 has gone to the wealthiest 1% of US citizens. The richest 3 Americans collectively have more wealth than the poorest 160 million Americans. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a staggering statistic. 3 people. 3 people. Thanks to the tightly bound frauds of the Fed and markets, the bottom 90% of Americans own essentially zero capital that produces income. And the vast majority of all income gains since 2008 has been siphoned off by the top 0.1%. And you can see that in the chart below for the New York Times. 3 monopolists own more wealth than half the nation's citizens. Yet the fraudsters in the Fed laughably insist their policies haven't created inequality on such a vast scale that it has destabilized the nation. The Fed's credibility is zero. Yet the financial media tiptoes around, proclaiming the glory of the emperor's illusory clothing. 3. America's system of governance is a fraud. What can we say when powerful politicians are worth over $100 million and are active participants in the most speculative excesses of the stock market, buying more than $1 million in Tesla, Disney and Apple calls in December? Do we even need to ask where their interests lie? What can we say about a regulatory system that immediately bails out the most corrupt and destructive financiers and speculators, but stands aside when the public loses trillions of dollars? The financial regulatory system is a complete fraud, devoted to bailing out the biggest insiders whilst ignoring the losses of the bottom 99.9%. America's financial regulations protect the corrupt, not the citizenry. 4. The wealth effect is a fraud. The Fed's entire fraudulent policy holds that if the stock market is goosed higher by Fed rigging, the phantom wealth handed to the top 0.1% will magically trickle down and benefit the bottom 90% who own no productive capital. And if you look at this chart from the New York Times, the fruit of financialization, soaring income inequality, and if we go back to 1980, the lower income households had the highest growth and the higher income had the lowest growth rate. Now, in 2014, and some 34 years later, the super wealthy garner virtually all the income growth. There is no magic. The wealth effect is a fraud. If one $5 stock in GameStop can be pushed up to $400 in a week, why not push every $5 stock to $400? This is the essence of the wealth effect. All capital is phantom capital, a fraud balloon awaiting a pin. The wealth effect failed. The Fed failed. Regulations failed. Politics failed. But thanks to the Fed and the self-serving political class, the entire US economy is now utterly dependent on this completely corrupt and destabilizing fraud in the stock market. If the stock market stumbles and collapses, the economy, now totally dependent on phantom capital, also stumbles and collapses. It didn't have to be this way, but this is the reality we must now face. Truth is fatal to fraud, and our entire financial political system is a fraud. The stock market is pale, and blood is seeping through the tuxedo. But the insiders, politicos, and their toadies and apologists are nervously averting their gaze. The market's bleeding, but can't possibly die. Can it? Yes, it can, and yes, it will. The truth is fatal to fraud, and the truth has escaped and is now free. We can't unsee what's behind the curtain. And of course, we will see on Monday what happens in the silver market, because the silver market has been absolutely rife with short selling by these criminals. I think there are an awful lot of people now who realize that our governments are a complete failure, our money markets are a complete failure, our regulators are a complete failure, and they're all on the side of the rich and well-heeled. Not on the 90%, us, the little people. So I am enjoying this pounding that they're going to take. I hope they get crushed into non-existence. The stock market is a complete fraud, and it is running on printed money, and that is the only thing that is keeping this stuff afloat. These big companies, Apple, JP Morgan, so on and so forth, they are buying back their own shares with borrowed money. These people are absolutely psychopathic, and it is long overdue for us, the masses, to recognize these charlatans for what they are. They are fools, they are idiots, they are not on your side, they are not trying to help you, and it's time that we completely ignored these people, that we stopped following their doctrines and stop accepting the fact that all of this fraud is a natural product of the stock market. No, it's a natural product of criminals. Criminals. So, take note and prepare yourself accordingly. Okay, if you've enjoyed this article, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. Bye.